Which real-life serial killer frightened/disturbed you the most? Toolbox Killers. The transcript of the tape of Shirley Ledford's torture was one of the most terrifying things I've read. Some sick peeps. Bittaker and Norris. There's some footage on YouTube of the local station covering the trial, but were not allowed in the courtroom. Had to stay in the hallway. Apparently one of the tapes was played in open court, and there are shots of various people coming out in varying degrees of distress just from listening. Makes me very pleased that those two are dead. Golden State Killer when he would stay in the room. Yup, victims would wait hours blindfolded thinking he's gone, but he's still in the room. Oof beep, was that the guy who told people exactly what he'd do to them if they ran or tried to get help? And then he'd go silent for hours. Didn't some people survive him by following his orders? That's some advanced psychological torture. You know you and your family are in danger. You've not heard him in what must have been an hour or two. Is he going to return? Is now my chance? Wait. Did he even leave? You don't know where he went or if he went. You're blindfolded and don't even know if it's morning yet. A fear of the unknown is the worst fear to people. It seems like that's what the Golden State Killer fed off of. William Bonin, aka the Freeway Killer, killed my childhood friend in 1980. He was 16. I was 15 at the time, and that is too young an age to wrap your head around having a friend a victim of a serial killer. It changed me. I just read about Fred and Rose West, a married couple in the UK who collectively were among the most prolific serial killers in modern UK history. It is a grim tale of rape and incest and prostitution and brutal murders and dismemberment of family members and random strangers, some of whom they buried in the garden behind their house. It's a fascinating yet horrific story. Richard Chase. Dude thought he was a vampire and that the government vaporized his blood. The solution? Kill people and rape some post-mortem. And drink the blood. This one time he was almost caught, so he made himself a baby milkshake on the way. He's pretty high on my list because he took an unlocked door as an invitation to enter. I always lock my doors at night because of him, and I was born after he died. Not sure if it's been said yet, but I'm going with Gary Ridgway. Or the Green River Killer. Dude killed between 50 and 70 women, usually teen runaways or sex workers, by picking them up in his car, smooth talking them, showing them pictures of his son to gain trust, having sex with them, and then strangling them with his bare hands and dumping them in the forest near Green River just outside of Seattle. Normal-looking mid-30s family man who claimed murdering young women was his career and bragged about having the most confirmed kills of any American serial killer. East Area Rapist, who went on to become the Golden State Killer and we now know as Joseph James DeAngelo. This guy would stalk his victims for weeks leading up to attacks, along with many other houses, while he was working as a police officer. When he attacked, he was relentless and would stay in the house for hours messing with his victims. When cornered, he would kill without a second thought. I think the craziest part to me about the GSK is that he would break into homes and leave shoestrings in hidden places in the house so he could quickly retrieve them to tie victims up when he came back for the attack. Imagine being one of those victims and slowly realizing not only the situation you were currently in, but also that this isn't the first time this masked man has been in your home. Robert Hansen, champion hunter in Alaska who would kidnap sex workers, fly them into the wilderness, and then hunt them for sport. He was also a baker, hence the media nickname Butcher Baker, who had a wife and 2 kids and was an active member of the community. What is scary about him to me is he was an average Alaskan. No one would think it weird if you went missing several times a year to go fishing and hunting. It's the culture here. He was active for 12 years and killed at least 17 women. The Railway Killer in the late 90s. He rode trains throughout North America and many of his victims were in Texas, where I lived as a teenager. We had railroad tracks just behind our backyard and we frequently saw people riding in open/empty cars. When it became apparent a serial killer was riding on trains in Texas, my parents got the house alarm fixed and then monitored. And my dad slept with a gun near his bed. Israel Keys. Rapist. Serial killer. Necrophiliac. He was raised in a militant fundamentalist Christian household. Joined the military. Then came back to the US and killed at least 11 people all over the country. He went to extraordinary lengths to not be caught by choosing victims at random. Killing far from his home. He would hide kill kits and return years later when he was ready to kill someone in that area. It's terrifying how he killed a woman in Alaska. Went on vacation with his family to some Caribbean island for a few days. Flew back to Alaska. Took the poor woman's body and sewed her eyes open and had her corpse pose with a newspaper that was a few days old to throw off law enforcement into thinking she was a runaway. Dismembered her. He then used her credit card in different states to show she was on the move. But that was what got him caught. The DC snipers John Allen Muhammad and John Lee Malvo. Not only were the killings completely random people filling up with gas or walking in a parking lot, they started to move south and I was still living in my hometown, Charlottesville, VA, so there was the fear they could make it that far south. I was in college in DC at this time. I remember the only advice was like, walk everywhere in a zigzag. I don't remember being super scared though. I think because the shootings were mostly happening in the suburbs. Or maybe it was the invincibility of youth. Or having come from New York and 9/11 and just being used to living life in low-grade state of terror. Mr. Cruel Unsolved. He is an Australian serial rapist who abducted and sexually assaulted 3 girls and is the prime suspect of the abduction and murder of another young girl. After sexually assaulting his victims, he bathed them carefully to get rid of evidence. One victim described it as like a mother washing a baby. In one case, he took a second set of clothes from the girl's home to dress her before he let her go. This case makes me feel so uneasy. H Holmes. He would trap people in a room with complete darkness and either leave them to starve to death or cook them alive. There's a book, The Devil in the White City, if you want some more information on him. It's currently being made into a movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio and directed by Martin Scorsese. Ah yes, The Devil in the White City discusses his house of horrors. I can't remember what serial killer it was, but he talked about how much he loved Holmes' house, was inspired by it. Sick peep. I had a friend do some time in El Dorado prison in Leavenworth, Kansas. He was a trustee and was assigned to clean the maximum security block that held Dennis Rader, aka the BTK killer. He said that Rader would just stand at the cell window and stare at him. No words. No movement, just eyes wide open staring while he swept and mopped. Creepiest thing ever considered everything he did. Sometimes late at night I remember that story and get nervous. The guy who ate children in the early 20th century and wrote letters to their parents talking about how their asses tasted. Worst killer I've ever read about. Albert Fish. He only wrote to the mother of Grace Budd and I think he only had 2 victims, but he was disgusting and a massive piece of speep. No question. Richard Speck. He killed those 8 nurses when I was a kid 9 years old, and I have never forgotten the headlines in the St. Louis paper showing the pictures of the nurses. It was the scariest thing I had ever seen and it upset me for the longest time. It's a pair actually. The Toolbox Killers. Roy Norris and Lawrence Bittaker. They drove around in their car they called the Murder Mac and kidnapped raped, and sadistically tortured women to death. They have recordings of them using pliers to twist girls' nipples, even smashing their bones with a sledgehammer. It's so bad that they use these recordings to desensitize FBI agents. These were the most sickest I've ever heard.